Cool. I think we're good to go with questions that Chris posted um, really quick and then get back to the usual. Um, any other indexes are having issues with one subgraph? Give me 1 second to find out what it is. That's Dodo X. Yeah, I had some issues with it. It was skipping, it was reverting some blocks, but in the end, it ended up like syncing up to Chainhead. It's one of the subgraphs that require tracing, as far as I know. So you'll need an Open Ethereum node for it. The most weird subgraph that I've seen is Open that has like it's like 30 megabytes in size, and most of the logs that I've seen from that subgraph are basically just reverted calls, and my ETH node is spammed with bad requests, and I have absolutely no clue if the data that I have there is correct or not. Is anyone else on the same page? Well, I guess not. Okay, moving forward. Progress with indexing Omen so far, time estimates. That's a big one. So we have 5 indexer nodes right now, each of them connected to to like its own separate ETH node. And all of them have more or less the same hardware specs. We're syncing Omen at around 50 to 80 blocks per minute, and it will take more than a month from this point onwards. We're 1.4 million blocks behind, like almost, depending on the server, like between half a month and more than a month to sync that one. And yeah, it's kind of terrible. But yeah, I've talked with Jim. He said he was syncing that without any issues at around 200 to 300 blocks per minute, which I find extremely unusual because, yeah, I mean, on 5 different servers is weirdly slow.
That sounds like a problem because when you open an allocation to start indexing it, then you cannot close it within 28 days.
Yeah, that's a problem. Chris said he was able to close open on his setup 34 megabytes inside. Closing it, I can close it as well. Closing with the right POI, that's a problem. I mean, I can just pass any POI and I can close the allocation and get the rewards, right? But making sure that the data that you have there is accurate is more challenging. Which I cannot verify myself. I tried a few POIs, everything shows, like for Dodo X, I think, everything on chain is messed up. I don't remember seeing the same thing with Open, but I will check.
We have some dashboards that we use on the hosted service for finding bottlenecks and like syncing times. It might be interesting to try to connect those to your nodes to try to identify the bottleneck. I wonder if it's something with the ETH node calls. Are you using a load balanced ETH node, or what's your ETH node setup?
No, we have 5 TurboGeth nodes. Each server is connected to its own TurboGeth node, and we have one Open Ethereum node and 2 more syncing. But yeah, the Open Ethereum node is not used for Omen in our case. We connected it to TurboGeth, but the same performance it had on Open Ethereum as it has on TurboGeth.
Okay, interesting.
It would be really nice to have more dashboards from the hosted service because there aren't so many available out there, and it would be really nice to have something tangible to like find.
Yeah, if that
legitimate
dashboard
bottlenecks.
isn't available already, I'll see if we can make that available like maybe next week.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Hey Ford, we had a conversation with I forgot, but he said that the load balancing ETH nodes is not really supported because it was not tested with responses from different ETH nodes that might.
Now let me cover that. So Ford, I had a chat with Luther regarding ETH nodes, and he said that it's not a good idea to load balance across multiple software stacks of ETH nodes. Basically, like you can't load balance a Open Ethereum with like multiple Geth or Turbo Geth nodes because it wasn't tested. I guess that's what Goldberg is trying to say.
That was what I was trying to say, but I understood that like when there is one gas node and it's like lagging one block behind or whatever, and you cannot assume that they will respond with the same state somehow.
Yeah, there's like a couple things there. For one, you definitely want to be careful with sharing a load balancer with nodes that have different capabilities. You know, like Open Ethereum has trace filters and the others don't, for example. The issue with nodes being at different block heights is a problem, but the graph node is pretty resilient and will retry. So I believe in most cases that would just result in a little bit of inefficiency if one of the nodes is like a little bit behind. So it's worth trying out, but it's definitely a little bit tricky to try to create a cluster of ETH nodes and load balance across them while maintaining consistent responses across them. So it's not just like throwing an Nginx proxy in front of it. It might require a little bit more work to make sure they're in line.
Interesting, thank you. Going on with Chris's questions. Experience syncing OE nodes time to full sync blocks per second rate. I believe Gary started syncing one from scratch, and he said it takes around 2 months to get it up and running. Vict and Alex from Grassets are asking, is there any way to estimate sync duration? If you know how many blocks per minute you are syncing, you can basically do the math and find out the estimate sync duration for the remaining blocks. No, even before start syncing, no. I mean, you look at the entities numbers, and you can assume that more entities means more time to sync, but it's not always that case. It depends. You said that you synced an Open Ethereum within a month. It depends when. If you did that last summer, well, yeah, we did that as well. But now, since that everything has like more transactions, and okay, in March, interesting. Maybe you just got lucky with peers, because it's really slow to sync nowadays. It would be nice to share, yeah, the command line options, especially the cache. I'm really curious. Okay, so we're not the only ones having memory leaks with it. Yeah, our ETH node just blew up one day. We assigned 100 gigs of mem out of 128, and it decided to eat everything, including swap, and then write the disks, and then it blew up with when it hit around 5.5 gigabytes per second reads for some reason. And yeah, it keeps creeping up. The memory keeps creeping up every day.
Yeah, right now it was having no load, and then also stopped responding to our calls. And yeah, basically an idling ETH node had to be restarted. And I think that's now running for 5 days or so.
Lol. Yeah. It's terrible. We need TurboGeth to make their stuff work faster. Like really, it's Open Ethereum is terrible. I'm sure like everyone will be happy to have TurboGeth up and running with trace support and to be more stable. It's not that bad on an Intel. Interesting. I wonder if it's just badly optimized for Epics and Ryzens. Could be the case.
I don't know, just get 2 of them, then load balance them, and then just restart every other hour. I think that should help.
Yeah, probably. I was looking at something that someone posted in Indexer's chat. Looks like Open Ethereum just released a new version 2 hours ago, 3.2.5. I am reading the release notes. So they fix block sync stop without any errors and strict memory order. Interesting. Checking the last issue. No, it doesn't say anything about memory leaks in that one. Unfortunately. Yeah, so new version of Open Ethereum. If anyone wants to try it, let us know how it goes. Could you please elaborate issues concerns with load balancing across multiple OEs? There's not a problem if you use the same version, but if you are trying to load balance, let's say you have a script that identifies trace stuff and you mix trace with non-trace subgraphs, and yeah, everything on your side should be perfect, right? There's still a problem if you're trying to load balance, let's say, Open Ethereum with TurboGeth or Geth, because the code itself, the way the states are written in their databases are different across different like software stacks, right? And
yeah, I mean, I think it's not going to be totally destructive. It'll just end up leading to a lot of retries. You know, if it's hitting a node that's either behind or if it's hitting a node that can't handle that type of call, it'll have to retry until it does hit a node that can handle it.
Yeah, Luther said that we should be careful when we load balance across clients that you don't give GraphNode an inconsistent view of the chain. But he said they didn't try it themselves, so the outcome is not entirely certain. But yeah, just something to keep in mind.
So Chris said that he tried Intel and AMD Google Cloud and it didn't make the difference.
Oh god, are you running Open Ethereum in Google Cloud?
How much does it cost?
Jesus Christ, mate. You don't have anything to do with that money?
Buy a car.
Yeah, every month for the money you pay for Google Cloud. That's crazy.
Google Cloud doesn't have Gen 3 AMDs, only Gen 2 AMDs, I think.
Oh, really? But it's still very expensive. Really expensive.
Yeah, but maybe like the Gen 3 is a problem and not the Gen 2 so much.
Yeah, could be. We found that syncing from one node graph blocks per second is more steady than rather syncing with load balancing across many OEs. Yes, I found that as well. Especially I had a look when I was syncing multiple subgraphs. I had a look at the what is called the request time, the latency. And the latency was all over the place when we were load balancing them, and then I moved every node to its own TurboGeth instance, and then everything went back to normal, which is really weird. I've seen this behavior in testnet as well, and yeah, for some reason Goldberg still insisted on running a proxy, but yeah, it's not a good idea. From what I've seen, it's you'd rather just connect each node to each individual ETH node, and if you need like more indexer nodes, you just create more indexer nodes and link them to their own ETH node. I think that's a decent, better, more approach. I don't know how to call it. But yeah.
Well, especially on testnet, I found that the Open Ethereum nodes, they were living longer when you put them behind an Nginx. So I put an Nginx proxy directly on the Open Ethereum node machine and put it behind it just to make sure that memory leaks doesn't appear that often. Also, when you have a rogue client that opens a lot of connections, then Nginx keeps them away from Open Ethereum because it only opens like one or a defined number of connections to the backend and just filters everything out in front. Obviously, I didn't really try to make the big difference lately because we also didn't have much traffic on the nodes. But I think it's still a good idea to hide Open Ethereum behind that.
Yeah, I think we need to test it more. In my opinion, I don't think, like, from what I've seen in our own Grafana instances, it wasn't a good idea to do it. But yeah, I think it needs more testing, especially on testnet, to see exactly what happened.
But did you point the indexers directly to the Open Ethereum nodes or to TurboGeth nodes?
To TurboGeth nodes. And the Open
That's a
Ethereum is
difference.
pointed to the proxy. And there was a huge difference between them. Like a huge difference in terms of latency. I tried to connect them in the same data center more or less, but the difference in latency was like night and day difference. From the proxy, even in the same data center, it had more latency, like orders of magnitude more latency than connected directly to the TurboGeth. Anyway, yeah, so leaving these ETH node stuff behind, if anyone wants to talk about the migration phases that has been going on so far, have you guys run into any troubles, especially when syncing subgraphs, apart from Chris? I'm just curious if anyone's I've seen any issues whatsoever. I highlighted a bunch of hours earlier. I guess not. Yeah, cool. So if any of you, I suppose none of you have any sort of trouble with the new subgraphs, that is really great to hear. It's just a bit surprising that there are no questions or concerns. But yeah, we could go over that. Next thing that I want to discuss, but again, oh wait, Chris said, well, would be good to have a way to verify those POIs. You will, when the indexer agent version that Ford talked about today in the workshop will be released for mainnet, I guess, right, Ford?
Yeah, right now that only like mainnet you have to use an older version, so we'll get those features kind of integrated onto the mainnet hopefully this week. But as much as possible, it would be awesome if people could be trying that out on testnet just to start getting used to the flow of checking your database for potential disputes, using the indexer CLI, and maybe even submitting some just to try the dispute process out. Has anyone been running the POI detection on testnet yet?
No, but on mainnet.
No one's trying it on testnet? Well, let me know if you guys do.
I'll try it today. I was actually very intrigued by how easy it was in your presentation.
Yeah, you just need to set the POI dispute monitoring flag, and then it adds that step to the indexation loop. So every time it loops through it's all of its checks, it'll check the network and then compare POIs.
Does it compare? Does it have a rule to check before? Like you mentioned that there's that edge case that the POI is generated at the end of the epoch, and so on and so forth. How much of a how many epochs does it check behind to verify if the POI is correct? Because I've seen people submitting POIs 3 epochs behind that are like technically
epochs behind. I would be curious to see that. would have trouble thinking of how that could happen. But it looks at the current epoch, so the epoch that the allocation was closed in, and it looks at the previous epoch.
Yeah,
and just a reminder, like when you're closing an allocation in an epoch, you submit a POI for the first block of that epoch.
Yes.
On testnet, it's kind of quick, so I could see that happening more often. On mainnet, the epochs are long enough that I imagine that'll be very, very rare.
Yeah, I'll send you the links with the stuff. I'm really curious why that happened as well. But yeah, it's the most I've seen is 3 epochs behind. Everything like more than 3 doesn't match at all, so I didn't check. I put the POI threshold to 5 epochs, and most of I seen was 3. But usually it was just 1 epoch behind.
I'm curious about the explanation for the degraded service for Matic subgraphs on the hosted service.
So I've tried. I'm not entirely sure why is it degraded, but I've tried an RPC from BlockVigil, the same provider that the graph is running their hosted service on, and it was very, very slow. Like it wasn't even catching up to, like it wasn't even trying to sync, to progress in terms of like block numbers. The chain was moving faster than that thing was ingesting blocks. So we switched to, like I switched my personal node to Quick node, and it was very fast, like orders of magnitude faster than that.
On the host service, we have endpoints that are not rate limited like the other ones. So I imagine we're avoiding some of those issues. We're actively looking into that at EdgeNode right now on the hosted service. It could be something to do with just DB load on that specific database, which we've been putting all the new EVM compatible subgraphs on. It could be related to the heavy load of indexing and querying of the QuickSwap subgraph that's had a lot of activity. But I can't really point to anything specific right now. It's still an active area of investigation.
Yeah, I mean, when I checked my logs in the graph node, I wasn't being rate limited, and it still was very slow. But yeah, it was probably a problem with the RPC I was using. But anyway, yeah. One thing that it's good to have in mind when we're talking about ETH forks like Matic, BSC, and all that sort of goodness out there is that you can't just copy paste a subgraph and expect it to work properly. So all these Uniswap forks that people just copy pasted and created on faster blockchains, they simply won't work. It's not the graph's problem, it's the subgraph's problem. The code itself is not optimized. Like you just can't expect 10 times faster block time and 50 times more gas limit to be as fast as ETH in terms of like processing data.
Rather to be able to keep up with all the data. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Anyone got any trouble with running Vector on testnet? I assume everyone here is running Vector, right? I mean, surely no one will start asking questions when Vector will be mandatory for mainnet, right? Because again, Vector setup is a bit more complex, and I really recommend everyone to take their time to have it working on testnet. I don't know an estimate time for that, Chris. Maybe Ford does know.
I don't have anything definitive for you guys right now. Sorry.
Sounds good. That means more time to test on the testnet before testing in production. No, but seriously, just have it running on the testnet. It will help you a lot when it comes to the way it works, because it's really complex and it has a lot of things that you have to be aware of, and how you set up the environment variables to have it running perfectly. Ford, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just accidentally hitting my push to talk button while
Okay.
typing. Maybe I should find a different button.
I'm using the middle mouse button, the scroll wheel, and click on it. Chris asked, to receive query traffic on testnet, do we need to ping Yanis, or there's some auto flow? That's a good question. Have you set your cost models? Then I guess we need Yanis to have a look at it. I know people were pinging Yanis with their addresses in the testnet channel. I don't know if that's still a thing, but he'd done some low scale tests like a week ago.
Yeah, they're doing some heavy optimizations and work right now. I'm expecting end of this week or definitely next week to do some much heavier testing on testnet. So get ready, guys.
Brilliant. Can't wait. Oh, I just realized Steak Machine just released his Ansible software stack for the graph. That's cool. I haven't played with it, but I assume it's working fine. Can you say a few words about it? Maybe on voice chat? Oof, it's okay. Yeah, I will give it a shot whenever I have time. I'm pretty limited in terms of resources right now, but yeah, I'm really happy to see it being released. Congrats. Is it fully implemented with the vector stuff already? That's still great to see. Nice, cool. So with vector, it's definitely worth posting in the testnet channel. I can pin it there if you want, along with our Docker Compose, just to get people to be onboarded faster. Oh, you posted it a week ago. Post it again, and I will pin it in the testnet channel after the the office hours. But yeah, congrats on having it running, even if it's on single node. That's still great. Easy onboarding. Okay, one thing I wanted to discuss, like before it's too late and we can't cover it. We need to have a standardized measurement for indexer performance and efficiency. I know you, Steak Machine, have your own Grafana dashboard, but there's also Briabinas and Oracle Miner stuff around, and every single one of these resources is reporting some different numbers when it comes to like the APY or the rates per hour or whatever. We kind of need to find something that works across all the three dashboards, and if anyone has any sorts of ideas on how we can improve that, feel free to leave them in the chat. And I have a few notes here from Jim. I'll just go over all of them. So the APY is useful for delegators, but indexers need more useful way to gauge their performance versus other indexers. For example, how can you normalize performance across varying amounts of stake and varying cuts? APY is useful, but APY plus efficiency score is even better. And I fully agree with this, because the APY itself, in and of itself, is just sometimes misleading because the indexer just puts a very low cut, and it gives away massive amounts of his own profits just to bait people to delegate to them, and then moves the cuts away. It would be nice to have something standardized across the like per million of stake allocated or something like that. But anyway, does everyone agree that this is needed? Like, do you have any sort of ideas on how we can improve these? Because all the metrics that we have right now are different and starting to become confusing, because like every like we only had one subgraph, so everyone developed these tools to be specific for a single subgraph, more or less, I guess. Chris said rewards earned rate, GRT indexer controlled stake, control stake self. I was more thinking about something like rates per million allocated or something like that, or rates per hour per million, or yeah, it needs to be something that it doesn't take into account how much you're giving away to your delegates. So like not the APY itself.
Like there is also this discrepancy between indexer performance. It's not only about the fee cut, also about strategy. So I would vouch for any kind of metric that tries to come up with an APY to take into account the past, maybe like 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months. I'm not sure.
Interesting.
Like when all these new subgraphs online, the big indexers, they didn't move. The small indexers, they basically took the big index as lunch and had a much higher APY, but I don't think that this is visible or that this will give them any benefits going forward.
Nah, my people see big stake, they just delegate a big stake. That's simply how it works. But yeah, I mean, in
Well, they
terms of like,
also they also go for APY. Like people, a big stake gives them like 5% less APY, then they also go to small stake, I think.
I'm really curious on how the dynamics will move, but yeah, it's still worthwhile to have a standardized measurement for this, because like you can't trust. I like at this point I don't know anymore if the Riabina's website does still work, because I see some random APYs there, and then I go back to the Oracle Miners Indexer dashboard, which is pretty much the only tool I still trust right now, and is giving me some other numbers. I have absolutely no clue which one of them to trust until I close my allocations and I then see different numbers.
Are you talking about like pending rewards or like APY? Because APY is just an extrapolation of data.
Yeah, but the APY is also kind of metric that you can compare more or less. Not directly, but still. Like,
I mean, APY is standardized if calculated properly and should be comparable one to the other. The only like variable there is that depending on the size of the indexer in terms of stake, your own delegation, if it's a new delegation, might move the APY more or less depending on the stake of the indexer. But like that's about as much as I see as an issue with standard like metrics. The pending rewards thingy, I guess, was the major issue, especially with the Oracle Miner, I think.
Interesting. Vic asked, can someone explain why the new UI on the network.thegraph.com shows query fees cut with a percentage? It was always like that. This is actually wrong because delegator presume is effective. That has always been like that. While it's pure cut, and our experience shows that delegator, it was always been a percentage. It was always been not the effective one. The only effective one was the indexer rewards. But the query fee cut is also implemented in the not if was cut without percent. What do you mean? I don't get it. It's literally the same thing. We haven't touched that table in like a month. But we can switch it to display the effective query fee cut, which is more or less the same thing. It was always with the percent sign. No, it was always with the percent sign. But we can switch it to display the effective cuts and like both rewards and query fees. So that is no problem. Chris said also up for the indexers out there. If you have been using the subgraph for data and decision making, the signal token for each subgraph is slightly off from the smart contracts amount. Juan, they fixed it. Yes, it was missing the curation tax. It's fixed.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's
one of the
pushed to
issues
prod,
was that I'm not sure if we pushed to prod.
No, we didn't. I think it was only approved last time I checked.
I could probably check in a bit, but yeah, if it's not pushed yet, it will be pushed in the next batch.
Yeah, we also need to upgrade the gateways, and it'll take a while. But the subgraph itself, not like on the hosted service, will be upgraded. I don't think you can easily switch to the effective. We can because it's in the subgraph. Juan implemented it like 2 months ago.
Yeah, we added it in the subgraph. Like, I don't want to get too deep into what that means for the query fee, but it's using the same calculation as the indexing reward uses. So it's
Yeah,
basically the same value as Riabina is showing in GraphScan.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a useless metric anyway.
Yeah, I don't really love it. It doesn't really tell you a lot, but I don't want to super go deep with that because it's going down the rabbit hole, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yes, exactly. The query
Exactly,
fees
yeah.
are not proportional to the delegated stake. Yeah, but then you need to have some metric that you can compare more or less.
Yeah, and you also could technically argue that the more stake you have, the more likely you are to be selected for a query. So you could argue that like having more delegation or a part of your delegated stake
No,
will be...
that's not correct. The gateway only picks you if you have own stake, like more own stake than it doesn't look like at allocated stake.
I'm not sure about that, so I won't be
I am sure
discussing.
because
But yeah.
I particularly asked Zach about it and he confirmed.
Cool. Then it doesn't really make much sense for the query fees to have an effective cut, but the algorithm can be used to calculate it, which is, I think, what Riabin is doing in his dashboard. So if anyone needed that value, we added it to the subgraph. But yeah, I don't think it's super useful.
Yeah, I think it's not useful either. But yeah, we can switch the UI to show that. But again, it was always in percentages, always showing the percent sign since the day one. Cool. Let me check on the agenda if there's anything else to talk about.
Oh, I almost forgot to mention, like, regarding the pending rewards, the rewards manager contract has a function called get rewards, which you have to pass an allocation ID, and it will tell you how many rewards are pending for that specific.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It's not always one-to-one accurate. Because when you close the allocation, it runs a calculation based on some averages of signal based on a period of time or some shit like that, and you then end up with exactly what the contracts say that you have if you call get rewards. Which is still
I'm quite sure like the get rewards function uses the same underlying algorithm that the staking contracts use. I mean, the rewards manager is the same contract that does the distribution of rewards. So I'm quite sure that the value from get rewards should be exactly depending rewards.
I was checking. Seems like it was exact when I closed out. So I have to check again. But yeah, I mean, I think I saw one time that it was different. Like I had 2 or 3k less GRT on an allocation close, but could have been just me wasting like a few more minutes.
It might happen if someone stakes more, I guess. If there's more money to distribute, some more GRT staked, just in the block that you closed compared to the block that you did the calculation, I guess. I don't remember exactly the formula that it uses.
Yeah, interesting. So if you want to get the most accurate pending rewards, you should be querying get rewards every, like pulling through all the open allocations, then summing up all the get rewards that you get for each allocation. Yeah, can't there be a subgraph of that one?
I don't know if
Please?
it will ever finish syncing, but yeah. I mean, I did write a script to, if you have an archive node, to basically query whenever you wanted, to make sure like when I don't know if you remember, but when mainnet started, like some guys used like proof of indexing 0 because of a bug, and I wanted to like check how much ERT was burned, and like the subgraph doesn't track that, so I did this tool to like check for any block in time. But I guess we could probably try to do the same with a subgraph, which is only dedicated for that specific reason.
No, I was more wondering if we could implement the pending rewards in the UI, the network tab.
Oh no, there's no way we could add it to the subgraph without making it unviable to sync. Because you would need to update block by block for all the allocations that exist in the network, which are a lot. And each of those will require a specific contract call, which will take like, I don't know, let's say 100 milliseconds to process for each allocation for every block.
Oh god,
It
no.
won't be viable.
Yeah, fair enough. I would just wonder if we have, let's say, it was a feature requested many times over the last few months. I've been watching these channels, but what if we could have a block handler that writes every like n blocks and doesn't like write data every single block? Would that make it more viable?
You will get spikes of usage. I guess you could probably write up like a script that executes block by block and checks if it's the amount of time, like if it like an hour or a day passed, but your data won't be like up to date every time. So I don't think that's super useful. But yeah.
Wouldn't that make it a little bit faster if you're writing every 1 minute or so to the to the database?
I mean, yes, compared to like doing it block by block, but every block like takes 15 seconds, so you're only like gaining 4 times the speed, let's say. And I think it will still be close to unviable, probably unviable.
Damn it.
I mean, there's many allocations at any point in time, and if you have to update them in a batch, it will take a lot.
150 indexers, at least 150 allocations, but like plenty of people have multiple subgraphs that are allocated.
Yeah, a good estimate would be like 1,000 or so.
Yeah.
You could always make a subgraph for just your indexer.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. I was more like wondering if we could implement something like pending rewards in the UI without like crippling it entirely, like in the network, the app. But yeah, I think also querying the rewards manager every single time you refresh the page will be like painfully slow. Steak Machine just said just use data from my dashboard. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky situation, and there's also the stuff with standardizing the efficiency, and yeah, we should. Steak Machine, can you maybe talk with the guys over at Riabinas and the Oracle miner dude, and see if you can basically get towards something more tangible? Because all of you have their own dashboard, and it's worth doing something standardized. everywhere. But yeah, with that said, I think it's time to end this meeting. It's already at the hours mark. Thank you everyone for joining this office hours, and hope I see you again next week.